What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Sean Strickland turns down UFC fight. In recent months, Sean Strickland has repeatedly insisted he's waiting on the sidelines until the UFC calls him about a title shot. But it wasn't necessarily clear if the UFC had a different plan for the former middleweight champion. Well, according to Robert Whittaker's manager, the answer to that question at one point was yes. After Strickland lost the middleweight crown to Dricus du Plessis back in January, he immediately called for a rematch, but the UFC went in another direction and asked Strickland to fight Paulo Costa in June. Strickland agreed to the bout, somewhat begrudgingly, and recorded a decision victory. Ever since then, the outspoken fighter has made it clear he's not fighting again unless it's for the middleweight strap. Well, given the UFC was looking at having Israel Adesanya fight DDP at UFC 305 in August, there was talk the promotion might ask Strickland to fight in the interim. In a recent interview with Submission Radio, Whittaker's manager, Titus Day, reported that was indeed the case. According to Day, immediately after Whittaker took out Ikram Aliskerov on June 22nd, the UFC approached them about Bobby Knuckles fighting Strickland at UFC 305. Straight after the last fight in Riyadh, they said to us straight away, literally on the day, "Does Rob want to fight Sean in Perth?" And we said, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." And apparently he said no. Yeah, that was it. So this is interesting to hear, although not too surprising, given Strickland's comments about fighting for the belt. While Dana White has since said that yes, Strickland is next for DDP, you still have to wonder if that might change, if Whittaker becomes the first man to defeat Khamzat Chimaev on October 26, especially if the Reaper does so in jaw-dropping fashion. Up next, MMA community reacts to shocking weigh-in footage. If you're an old school MMA fan, you know that there have been plenty of unnerving and scary incidents at UFC weigh-ins, and there was another one on Friday ahead of UFC Vegas 97. As you can see by watching the footage, Dylan Budka looked extremely shaky as he stood on the scales to record his weight. Then, the middleweight needed help walking off the stage after coming in 2.5 pounds overweight for the bout. As this video was being produced, Budka is still cleared to fight Andre Petrosky on Saturday. But not surprisingly, the incident drew plenty of responses online. Here's some of the reactions from the MMA world. "We shouldn't have to wait for somebody to actually die before making a change to this nonsense. Bro was swaying, LMAO. I don't know why he didn't stop cutting after realizing he couldn't make the weight. Like, why push yourself that hard if you're not going to make it anyway? This is not healthy. We need a same-day weigh-in. When are they going to finally put an end to this weight-cutting madness? Just ridiculous. Dude looks weak as water. Give him a chair and a drink of something." Brought to you by Icon Meals. I hate this ish. Who wants to see people do this to themselves? Dude made $4,000 his last fight. Wow, that's pretty bad. Just stop being a and fight the weight class you're meant to be in, rather than trying to do these death cuts to be weight bully. It'll be interesting to see how Budka looks in Saturday's fight. But what do you think? Can the UFC and athletic commissions do more to prevent these types of incidents? Now let's take a look at Umar Nurmagomedov fires back at Merab Dvalishvili. Not long ago, Merab Dvalishvili proclaimed that if he wins the UFC's bantamweight belt at UFC 306, he has his own plans as to who he should fight next, and that they don't include Umar Nurmagomedov. Well, those comments got back to Nurmagomedov, and the undefeated fighter has fired back at the surging contender. Merab continues to prepare for a September 14th showdown with the current champion, Sugar Sean O'Malley. Recently, the Georgian fighter appeared on the Shaq Food podcast. While discussing who he wants to fight if he takes the crown from Sugar, Merab relayed he wants to battle former flyweight champion Deiveson Figueiredo. According to Merab, the God of War deserves the opportunity since he's coming off wins over Rob Font, former champ Cody Garbrandt, and most recently, Chito Vera. Merab told Shaq that Deiveson Figueiredo beat 3 tough guys. One former champion he finished. He dominated a former title challenger, Chito Vera. He's a former champion. He called my name respectfully. I would like to fight him. More name, more respectful, and more deserving. Umar, I'm not interested. Umar, meanwhile, is sitting in a pole position for the title shot on account of his decision victory over Corey Sandhagen in August. After hearing Merab's comments, the Dagestani fighter responded with this post on X. "Merab, just focus on your upcoming fight. Too much Umar in your head. Everybody knows that you don't want to fight me. And honestly, I don't care about you. I'm just hunting for the belt. If you win the belt, we talk." Now, it remains to be seen if in fact Umar does get tapped for a title shot next. But given he's gone 6-0 in the UFC to date and his recent win, it would be pretty surprising if the UFC went with Deiveson instead. And let's face it, being a member of one of the most decorated and famous families in MMA history doesn't hurt. But what do you think? Should Umar be next? No questions asked? Michael Venom Page moving to middleweight? Michael Venom Page isn't planning on exiting the welterweight division anytime soon. But recently, the highlight reel striker reported he has his sights set on fighting in the middleweight division. As it stands right now, it remains to be seen what's next for Page, following his decision loss to rising welterweight star Ian Garry in June. That fight followed Venom's successful Octagon debut in March, when he recorded a decision victory over Kevin Holland. Well, during a recent stream on his YouTube channel, the former Bellator contender was asked if he's thought about fighting at middleweight. Page made it clear that he's thought about it a lot, but that first things first, he has some business to take care of at welterweight.
100%. There's a lot of fun matchups up there. I have definitely thought about it, and I can definitely see myself doing it. All honesty, it makes it 10 times easier to not have to cut as much weight. So there's that. Obviously the guys are naturally going to be a bit bigger than me, so I have to make sure all the areas that I'm still working on now, next year, come back, I'm looking to clear out the welterweight division, and then yeah, you'll probably see me go up as well. So definitely in future, at some point, you could probably see me go up into the middleweight, because like you say, there's some fun fights, I agree.
Now, of course, it would be fascinating to see how Page looks at middleweight and whether he could effectively put his vaunted striking game to work. But given that Page is now 37 years old, you kind of have to wonder whether he can wait around to make the jump, if and when he puts together a title run at welterweight. Even if, say, Page fights 3 times in 2025, and for a lot of UFC fighters these days, fighting 3 times in a year is a big if, he'll be turning 39 not long into 2027. But what do you think? Do you see Page fighting at middleweight before his career's up? Daniel Cormier worried about Jorge Masvidal UFC return. Recently, as many people have been expecting would be the case, Jorge Masvidal announced that he's talking to the UFC about his Octagon return. While the news made headlines around the MMA world, Daniel Cormier is not convinced that Gamebred's the draw he once was. Masvidal originally announced he was closing the book on his MMA fighting career back in April of 2023 after he lost via decision to Gilbert Burns. The loss was his 4th straight, and Masvidal acknowledged he wasn't the force he once was. But the brash fighter repeatedly teased that he would fight again, and he did so this past July when he boxed Nate Diaz. Although Gamebred also lost that fight via decision, Masvidal has maintained the judges got it wrong. Well, all that aside, following Masvidal's recent revelation about his plans for a UFC comeback, Cormier weighed in on the subject via his YouTube channel. Here were some of the concerns the legendary fighter listed. Look at the names on his resume. At the end of the day, when you look at the career as a whole, it boils down to 1 year where Jorge Masvidal made you guys care, and it made him a star. But my question to you now is, do you still care? Because that's what he's banking on. He has lost his last 4 MMA fights, and he lost a boxing match. He said he'll come back, start somebody, and the UFC will be begging him to fight for a championship. My question to you is, do you care now? Do you care like you did in 2019? Do you care like you did when he was on that amazing run, when he made himself from a guy that was middling, from a guy that was a bit of a journeyman, into a main event attraction? He and Kamaru Usman sold a boatload of pay-per-views, but do you care today in 2024 to see Jorge Masvidal come back and fight someone? Die-hard Masvidal fans may take issue with Cormier's questions here, but he does raise a good point. At the end of the day, it's been nearly 5 years now since Masvidal won a fight at UFC 244, when he recorded a TKO win due to a doctor stoppage over Nate Diaz. But none of this means, of course, that a fair amount of fans won't be pumped to see Masvidal back in the cage. But would the UFC tap him for a headlining bout right out of the comeback gate? And who would they have the 39-year-old fight? Up next, Oscar De La Hoya sends a message to Dana White. Oscar De La Hoya and Dana White have been feuding for years. Actually, to refer to it as feuding might be an understatement, but it actually looks like De La Hoya's beef with boxing superstar Canelo Alvarez has surpassed his issues with White. How so? Well, as you've probably heard, the same September 14th night that UFC 306 is going down at the Sphere in Las Vegas, Canelo is booked to fight Edgar Berlanga right around the corner at T-Mobile. In a recent social media post by De La Hoya, he fired multiple verbal jabs at his former fighter, Canelo, while also sarcastically suggested he and White hang out. I love the sport of boxing more than anything, and I'll be watching boxing matches anywhere at any time, even if it's a simple sparring session or 2 bums fighting in the street. So the idea that I'm choosing to support the UFC and Dana White instead of Canelo tells you everything you need to know. Dana, I can't wait to see you next Saturday, buddy. I see you got the same ab surgery I got. I always knew you wanted to be like me, bro. It'll be great to hang out with you face to face. So what's your take on Oscar's post? Funny stuff or extremely cringe? The MMA community roasts Ian Garry after his girlfriend posted a video of him singing and apologizing to her with a caption stating, "When you've argued and he still thinks he's right, but he kinda knows he's wrong, but he's not entirely sure, and he's still mad, but he does love you all at the same time."
You're crying, you can't lie to me.
Fans in the community were quick to respond to this video, absolutely roasting Ian in the responses. Here's what they had to say. His 40-year-old wife definitely manipulates him. Layla and her boyfriend deciding whether to let Ian in or not. You just know the wife's boyfriend is sleeping in his bed. He wants to be back in corner chair again. Humiliation ritual. Fellas, trust me, she will not respect you if you do this. Oh my god, it's a full video. Ian Garry's wife really made sure the world got to see this one. That creepy, unsure smile. Had him singing and dancing for her to let him back in the house. Why did she need to show the whole world this video? Humiliating poor Ian. A woman that makes her man look like a bitch on the internet because she finds it funny should be ashamed of themselves. Why disrespect your own man in front of the world like that? Absolutely insane. Wait till he's 35 years old and she's 50. He will be dating a grandma and regretting every second. Somebody needs to fire his barber. Jesus effing Christ, and we thought Henry Cejudo was king of cringe. Bro doesn't hold a candle to Ian. Ian, leave her before it's too late. We cannot lose more men to Afghanistan. Dustin Poirier confirmed his return to the UFC by responding to a fan's tweet that said, "Need to see Dustin Poirier make that walk one more time." Dustin responded by saying, "I will. Once more into the fray, into the last good fight I'll ever know. Live and die on this day. Live and die on this day." Who do you want to see Dustin fight for his retirement match? Let us know in the comments. Top comments. Izzy responds was 100% written by his lawyer. If Alex will beat Khalil with a KO, he will be the #1 pound for pound as he fought twice since Islam last fought. Respect to Izzy for trying to de-escalate the situation. Imagine if it was someone talking ish to Strickland, lol, also wishing Islam a speedy recovery. When in doubt, use a Conor McGregor line, Kamaru Usman.